gig.
Let me tell you something about the David Lee Roth gig, Elmo. There's like, how many hours do you got? Yeah!
I'm sitting here with a phenomenal drummer and performer, and I'm excited to hear this story. Ray, how did you get the Korn gig?
You know, this business is a very strange, fickle business, as everyone knows. A lot of auditions you go to, you never know what's going to happen. You know, sometimes you don't even know you're at an audition, you know.
Right.
Through the grapevine, you kind of find out, you know, my whole thing was like, how do you get an audition? I don't know. I had the opposite approach when I moved to Los Angeles. I would lock myself in a room, a rehearsal space, and just play and play and play, thinking I'm going to get so good that no one's going to turn me down. And lo and behold, that was really wrong. You know, you need to go out and network, and you need to meet people. And fast forward to the Korn gig, my previous band, Army of Anyone, with Robert and Dean DeLeo from Stone Temple Pilots and Richard Patrick from Filter. I was just leaving the David Lee Roth gig, looking for another band, and Korn's management also managed Army of Anyone. And I remember calling my manager saying, "What's going on with Korn? They keep all these drummers," and he was like, "Yeah, they're looking for someone, you know, permanent, and they actually really dig your Army of Anyone record." And I'm like, "I'm flattered." And months goes by. It was the end of Joey's tour, the end of the run, and Joey, you know, he had to go back to Slipknot, and now they're definitely looking for a drummer. And my manager goes, "You should just go up there, learn 5 or 6 songs, and see how it goes, you know." And I'm like, "Where?" He goes, "Just go to the arena." I'm like, "I'm going to go to the arena on their last show." "With what?" He goes, "We'll just rent you some little kit." So I learned about 33, 35 Korn songs as best as I could. Monkey comes in, he's like, "I'm sorry we're late, it's the last day of the tour," and you know, he's eating a sandwich. Like, I'm just like, this is weird, you know.
Because everyone knows too, like in the touring world, the last day of a tour is a different dynamic of every other day of the tour.
You're already home.
Yeah,
you're
you are
already in your
already
bed.
home.
You're already like, bye, you know.
You're planning your prank for the night.
Totally.
And that's it.
Yeah, so, you know, he comes in, "What do you know?" And I hand him this paper. And he's like, "You know all this?" I'm like, "Kind of," you know. I started naming songs, and he's like, "Well, let's do some of the hits." So we did, of course, "Falling Away From Me" and "Here to Stay." And I said, "Let's do Everbeat," because Everbeat has a lot of crazy drumming on it. And he's like, "You know that song?" I'm like, "Kind of." And so we're playing through it. And you can actually watch my audition on YouTube. It's actually on there.
Really?
If you type in Ray Luzier audition, you can see me playing. I didn't know I was being filmed. They told me they were going to go to lunch and talk about it. Usually when they say that, that means you didn't get the gig. Mm-hmm. And next thing you know, cameras in my face, and it's like, you know, "You got the gig, and you know, welcome to Korn. We'll see you in Dublin." It didn't hit me for a week that I was in the band. I went to the next clinic with this big grin on my face, like, and I'm doing my clinic, and all I could think about is like, I'm doing the new Korn tour. This is crazy, you know. And we did a 4.5-month world tour in 36 countries right off the bat.
Oh, wow.
And we didn't rehearse or anything. I never rehearsed before the first Korn show.
You just showed up to Dublin.
I showed up to Dublin the day before. We ran the set at the venue. That's it. There's no one like Korn fans. I mean, these people have all the records tattooed, all the
Right.
members. I mean, they're not messing around. I remember telling my friends, if I can just get a year out of this, it'll be good for my resume. I love this band. It's, you know, they approached me. They said, "Hey, we don't want you going anywhere." And I'm like, "I'm not going anywhere." And they're like, "No, we really want to take you on. And if you're into this," and I was like blown away. You know, I was like, "Yeah, of course I want to. Let's figure it out." You know, because I hate paperwork to this day. The business side is always a bummer. What I found out years later is I wasn't educated on the music business enough. That's why it was a bummer. I always made bad deals. And that's why I encourage up-and-coming musicians to really educate yourself on that. Don't do what I did. It took me a decade to really figure out. I signed a lot of bad record deals and a lot of bad... I didn't care. I was like, I just want to tour the world and be on a CD, and here you go. You know, it's like, now It's like, oh boy, you know.
This was one of the first songs I ever learned on drums, and I'm sure it was for a lot of drummers. But what does that feel like to play blind in front of, you know, all the Korn fans and like the energy of that song? And
that's exactly the word is energy. There's a thing about it. There's something about the power of that, just that simple ride cymbal beginning to when the 808 hits to when Fieldy plays his bass part. You can feel the crowd. You know, we could be on 16-hour time change, jet lagged out of our minds, and just like, oh God, here we go again. Are you ready? The second we hit the deck in that song, it's just like everything changes. You just become this character, you know. There's a zone you get into, and there's nothing you can do about it, you know. I'm looking out, and the 4 original members are standing in front of me, and it's just this. Just to see the fans' reaction. Jonathan never sang the song Daddy live before, so people were actually crying in the audience. Wow. And it was a very emotional thing, you know, to watch these fans, because it got them through a lot of crap in their lives, you know. It's like, there's some people that go to a concert and it takes them away from their 9 to 5, and there's some people that go so far as, like, they'll go up to Jonathan and say, you saved my life. If it wasn't for this record and you playing live, I was suicidal. And you're just like, whoa, it's a heavy thing, you know. Music's way more powerful than we think, you know.
For sure. Tell me a bit about the David Lee Roth gig. How'd you get the David Lee Roth gig?
Let me tell you something about the David Lee Roth gig, Elmo. How many hours do you got? No, I'm sorry. I have to do the cigarette.
Nailed that impression.
Having David Lee Roth as your singer and having him as your roommate are 2 totally different things. You know?
Tell me about being on the bus with David Lee Roth.
Oh man, oh wow, he's a very unique individual, and you have to be David Lee Roth. How can you not? You can't be normal to be that eccentric and to be one of the world's greatest frontmen of all time. You just
agreed.
A Joe Schmo down the block is not going to have that position.
You're not going to do that.
No.
Yeah.
But he taught me so much. I call it the School of Roth, because Dave's the first one that said, like, you know, just because you're sitting in the back, people pay good money. Put on a show. You're in showbiz, kid. You know, that was his whole thing. Dave's the one that said, like, put on a show back there, you know, and he made me sing. That was my first gig where I had to sing full-blown harmonies and on key, or he'd yell at you.
Right.
And bashing my brains out. So now we have this 5-way independence. I'm already doing 4 limbs. Now I got to hold You Really Got Me and Beautiful Girls and California Girls and every other girl song we do. And at full force, you know. And would I literally have a cappella, as Dave called them, Acapulco rehearsals. We're going to get together and you guys are going to sing for a couple hours today. And they're like, what? And it would sit there and just, with no instruments, singing all these parts, just like, man, when we hit the deck on the very first, show, we sounded like we've been on the road for a month. It was awesome because I grew up playing Van Halen. I had Dave from the US Festival hanging on my wall doing that kick. I mean, come on, there wasn't one show that I didn't look out and go, that's David Lee Roth. I'm sitting behind David. I'm providing the groove and the beat and the time for this guy, that I worshipped, So I never really took advantage of that whole thing. We're like, whatever, it's a gig, I played Jump 5,000 times and, oh great, we're opening up with Hot for Teacher again. Not once.
There's no way you could.
No.
I mean,
no.
Hot for Teacher was the reason why I got my double bass pedal when I was 10.
Totally, man.
I was just like, oh my God.
Totally. And I was, I'm in my underwear in Pittsburgh, on the farm, on a 118-acre farm, trying to figure out the beginning of Hot for Teacher. Now I'm playing it with the guy. You kidding me? It's like,
What was it like in your first experience meeting him, working with him?
My audition with Dave wasn't like anything else because they tricked me. I did this kid's record. His name was Mike Hartman, and unfortunately he passed away from cystic fibrosis at 24. He went to MI when I was a teacher there. I taught at MI for 10 years off and on around tours. And Mike would come up and he had these thick bifocal glasses, and I'm like, dude, you're a guitar player. What are you doing in my drum class? He's like, I like your playing. I'm like, cool, man. Let's keep it quiet. Sit over there and let me talk to the drummers. And he would just bug me. He's like, hey, man, Greg Bisnet's going to play on my solo record. I'm like, sure he is, kid. What are you to bother me? Get out of here. Next thing you know, he's like, we're going to Steve Vai's house to record my record. I'm like, okay, kid, now you're really stretching it. We're going to Steve Vai's house? He's like, and we did. He gives me the address. I'm showing up at Vai's house in Hollywood, and I'm like, okay, this is bizarre. So anyway, long story short, I did a couple songs on this kid's record. He calls me up about 6 months later, and goes, hey, I'm working with David Lee Roth. And I'm like, should I believe this kid? We went to Vai's house. Maybe he is working with it. He goes, and I got even better news. Dave likes the 2 songs that you played, and he wants us to re-record them because he's going to put vocals on them because it was an instrumental record. And I'm like,
what a call.
Yeah, I'm like, are you freaking kidding? I'm there, man.
For sure.
So you know, that was you talk about a bucket list. You know, I just wanted to meet that guy, let alone play on something. Are you kidding? So all I know is I'm playing these 2 songs, and I do my first take, and Dave walks in as I'm kind of warming up, practicing, and he's kind of hunched over because he just had this back surgery. And hey, kid, it's good to meet you. I'm a fan. I'm like, I'm a fan of you, sir. I can't even believe you just. I was stunned. You know, I'm playing my first take, and he's back there, and he hits the talk back button, and he goes, "Somebody take the bongo player to Starbucks. He's dragging." And I'm like, and he goes, and he walks in the drum room, and now I'm like, oh crap. And he's like, "Hey kid, what if I said play this fill right here?" And I'm like, "Okay, I'll play this." And he's like, "No, I want you to swing. What if you put those 2 bass drums underneath that?" And I'm like, oh crap. And he's asking me all these questions, and I'm like, that was kind of weird. And he goes back in the control room, and he's talking to his bodyguard, his manager, and I get a call the next day from his bodyguard. He goes, "Hey kid, you passed with flying colors." I'm like, "Pass what?" He's like, "Didn't you know it was a little weird that Dave was asking you all those questions?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course, but I thought he was just, you know, putting me through a test for the studio." And he goes, "No, that was a gig. You got the gig." So there you go. Now it's a surprise audition. I had no clue that I was being interviewed. You know what I mean? I was just doing the best. I'm so glad he did that, because if I'd have known that was an audition for that band, I would have been 10 times more nervous.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Smart man.
Tricky guy. Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
He's and then it was weird. John 5 was in the band at the time, and John's like, "Hey man, Marilyn Manson just offered me this tour," and next thing you know, the band was disbanding, and I was the only one left. So we put together a band for the beginning of the '99 tour that we did, and it was 8 years, and I did 3 studio records and a crazy video called David Lee Roth's No Holds Barbecue. We're on a tour bus in Detroit, and Ted Nugent's on this side, and Kid Rock's over here, and they're watching this video, and Dave's all happy, he's like smiling, he's, you know, and they're just like, "What is this video we're watching?" It was so bizarre. I mean, there was like, yeah. Anyway, it's a rare find, but if you check that,
Dude, I'm gonna find it
if
for
you can
sure.
find that,
I'm gonna dig.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Man, well, thank you so much for taking the time.
Of course.
Coming and hanging out, man. I love your story. All right, Ray, tell me about these beautiful Vic Firths you have in your hand.
Yeah, I'm very honored that Vic Firth asked me to make my own signature stick. I'm a peon on this giant roster of amazing, you know, influential drummers that have changed my life and my, you know, helped my career. And these are for you.
Yes,
they're for you.
my gift.
Yes,
Dude, amazing.
I'll sign them.
I'm literally gonna play with these.
I'll sign them. They'll be worth another 50 cents.
Dude, get at me on eBay in 2 months from now.
Yes.